order or honoring the sacred and the power of nurturing or caring or healing or family and honoring that. So I see it as a very exciting time in history, because I really feel that what's going to come is that as people begin to balance their own sun and moon natures within, or their dynamism and magnetism, is that we're going to see more wholeness come together, the synergetic principle come together. And we already see that on a global level. We could say that the culturally, this culture in the 40s and the 50s was in their sun times. It was high achievement, high doing, satellites, inventions of TV, the application of the atom bomb. So it was no wonder that in the 60s and 70s that there was moon times, introspection, the humanistic movement, the me generation, all of that, altered state, all of that going inward. And so that I see the 80s as being a time of where we're in what I perceive as prenuptial anxiety. Is that we've had 20 years of the sun and we've had 20 years of the moon, and so we're coming into what's called star times or bridging times or integrative times, of where we can no longer be all sun and we can no longer be all moon, but the work is really that integrative work. It's star times, bridging times, integrative times. And we see that even globally, where we can say that the western side of the planet is really the sun side of the planet. And we can say that the eastern side of the planet is the moon side of the planet, with all the seed of the religions. And what we can begin to see, that there's been an east-west exchange, given that the west has reached for the east to reclaim its spirituality, and the east has reached to the west to reclaim its own technology, given Sony, Datsun, Mazda, and so on. And that comes out in a really beautiful creation myth that is finally being actualized at this point in time, about a beautiful mermaid that would swim only in the lighted waters of the sun. And even in darkness, she would look for the light. And gradually, the sun fell in love with this beautiful creature and stuck out his tongue, which is a beautiful rainbow, and pulled her up to him. And they unified, and there were 7 teardrops of joy. And then he spit her back out, and she became a huge shooting star that grew and grew to become the moon. And at twilight, you see neither the sun nor the moon, because once again they are unifying. But you see all their children, which are the stars. And I see this as a really, it's a time of what I call sweet territory. It's a time where the sun has stuck out his tongue for the great lady of the East. And the great lady of the East also reached back to bring in more productivity and tangibility and equal power coming together to create something greater, the synergetic principle. And that's the time that we're in, and I'm so glad that I decided I wouldn't miss it. That's the time. So thank you for that question. And to be honest with you, I'd have to say, I don't know how it's going to turn out between the male and female, but what I would really love to see, what would be a vision or a dream that I would love to see, is that I would like to see the capacity for us to honor and respect each other as human beings. I'd like to see that. And I think we're on the threshold of that, especially if we begin to remove blame, judgment, and attack from each other. And really see that whether a person's in a male body or someone's in a female body, that there's an enormous reservoir of creativity to be tapped. I love what Heidegger said when he said that a person is not a thing or a process, but is an opening through which the absolute can manifest. And I'm inspired to look at how many wonderful openings there are for the Absolute to manifest. And I'd like for us to begin to look at each other as openings. Or Emerson's wonderful quote that moves me a lot when he said, "What lies before us and what lies behind us is but a small matter compared to what lies within us." And I'd like to see us as men and women, and as women and men, to look at each other as these incredible, unlimited reservoirs. That we don't even begin to tap. We don't even begin to see. So thank you. Oh, the sound that I made. The sound that I made. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Well, the sound is in the Basque culture. That's the sound. It's the Arinsi, which is called the cry of the spirit, and you're not allowed to make it until your 7th initiation mountain in the Pyrenees with your parents and with invited friends, where you will make your cry of the spirit. And by the time you're 7, you have the hardly wait, because you know how taboos are. Great curiosity manifests. And so 7 on your birthday, you get ready to give forth your cry of the spirit. And this is a cry that's presented at all births, all marriages, and all deaths. It's a celebration of the spirit of who we are. It's a way of being full of spirit, honoring the great gift of life. And so after 7, then you go into training with that sound through chanting, through singing. There's a Basque adage is that you sing for your life. You sing for your life, and this is a way of staying full of your own life force. And in order to do it, you really have to let go. It's a training in totally letting go and not being attached to outcome, and totally connected with what's there. And it breaks patterns. It breaks any sense of diminishment. I mean, if there's that sense of diminishment inside or contraction, then I can't produce that sound. So then I know that I have work to do. I need to do more singing. I need to sing for my life. And the song that you're trained to sing from the time that you're 3 in preparation for this is that I'd like to teach you, because it's a healing song and it's a transformation song, and it's a song that is important to do when you're feeling any kind of soul loss, loss of spirit. When you feel depressed, depression is soul loss of spirit. And so I'd like to teach you the sound, because it's all preparation for making the song, because it's all preparation for making the Arinsi, the cry of the spirit. In the Basque language, the word for fog and the word for light are exactly the same. And that word is chitty-mitty. Can you say it? Chitty-mitty. Chitty-mitty. And when you're experiencing the strong fog, you need the strong light to break that strong fog. Sometimes there's just soft fog. And so when there's soft fog, then you need the soft light to break the soft fog. And sometimes we have what's called that sneaky, creepy, little subtle fog. And when that sneaky, creepy, subtle fog is in our nature, then you need the twinkling light to come in. All right? So the strong light is a practice in my dynamism, in the sun of who I am. The soft light is the practice in my magnetism, the power of the moon to pull, to draw in. And the twinkling light is my starlight, twinkle, twinkle, twinkle. And I love, the first song I learned in this culture was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and I loved it because it tied in with this part of the Chitty Bitty, the bath song, Twinkle, Twinkle, Twinkle. So I'd like you to join me in any time that you feel comfortable. It's 4 times to honor the fourfold way of showing up, paying attention, telling the truth, and not being attached to outcome. You do that 4 times with the sun, you do that 4 times with the moon, and you twinkle 4 times with the stars. And I'd like for you to think about in your nature right now, what is foggy? Where are you experiencing soul loss? This is a time to begin to transform that energy. So it goes like this. Chitty mitty, 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 chitty mitty. Chitty mitty, 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 chitty mitty. Chitty mitty, 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 chitty mitty. Oh. Yeah. I hope I have time for another question. Sure. It has to do with the beautiful imagery of the conference. I'm really glad that starts with Urban Du Bois, and it's clear that all the people who spoke to us have a great concern for the species and a curiosity about what we share. Yeah. Clearly, there's, in light of TikTok, there's some urgency about our daily organisms. Yeah. And your perspectives, while they're different, also have many things in common. I'm just wondering, from your point of view, how best can we go forth and get this done while we're still in the kind of percentage which permits survival, percentage of time, percentage of species, given the astonishing odds against it? Well, how? Yeah, what's not the question, but how is the question. I personally hold the perspective that we absolutely need at this time to urge ourselves, which is the root word of urgency, to urge ourselves to emerge creatively, which is the root word of emergency. And so I really feel that it's the time is what's motivating me right now? What has heart and meaning and passion and inspiration for me right now? And to begin to really move with that with a sense of commitment. Each one of us does make a difference. And I would begin to take a look at the ways that that I hold myself back, that I edit, rehearse, or I tell myself all the reasons why it's not going to work. How willing am I to go for what it is that I want? And I think that's the work that needs to be done at this point in time, is for me to begin disengaging my own patterns of I can't, wish I'da, if only, someday I'll. Watch those words and really begin to go for that in creative ways. Creative ways. I don't have a pat formula. All I have is a real personal commitment to go for what it is that I feel can motivate, generate, inspire, network, plant seeds, pull weeds, and each day, what is the quality that I'm bringing to each day? And to really follow, to begin to follow what is right placement and to remove myself from situations that are de-energizing and where I'm not placing myself well, and where I'm beating my head against the wall, or my needs aren't getting met. Then why am I there? So it's little things that I would begin to take a look at that starts an incredible kind of ripple effect. This culture suffers from a disease called impatience and instantaneous need for it to happen. And I think that the practice for this culture is a lot about not pushing and not holding back. And that's the practice. And it involves, if I don't push and I don't hold back, then I move into a really unlimited creative place. Pushing and holding back still keeps me in control. It's a form of control, which leads to a form of diminished returns or frustration. That's all that I can really say to that. Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about the significance of symbolism within each of the enlightenment? How that can give us aiding insights into today's modern world, as well as the possible transformational properties of these symbols within the new emerging paradigms of art and science.
How about that? Hello, come in. Well, what I'd like to do is I don't know how much time we have, is give you another experience working with 8 universal symbols. See where you are mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And that might very much address your question. So if you have paper and pen. Oh, there's all kinds of paper up here. Does someone have the time so I can monitor this? Oh, 5. Are we supposed to end at 5?
We don't mind. We don't mind. Go on.
All right. Well, this, okay. It's an important question that you raised, and how I want to address this is that there are 8 universal symbols of transformation that can assist us in creating new realities internally and externally. And the body of myths that we've been overlooking are the creation myths. There's not a culture in the world that does not have creation myths. And what are creation myths but stories about how we can create new realities? And I think it's astounding that there are only 4 books in the English language on creation myths. That's how much they've been overlooked. And yet in this time, we have multiple stories from all the cultures in the world and how we can build new realities internally and externally, and realities that can collapse polarity. So the 8 universal symbols that you'll find in myths that are transformative symbols, they are symbols of transformation, are the snake, the butterfly, the flower, the bird, the mountain, the tree, a shelter, and a path. Path, going down the path. Okay, so there are 8 universal symbols of transformation. The snake, the butterfly, the flower, the tree, the shelter, the mountain, the bird, and the path. Shelter and the path. Okay, the 8. Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to draw these 8 symbols on your sheet of paper and make a scene where all of them are together. All together is to draw those. Okay, and this will, okay, the snake, the butterfly, the bird, the shelter, the tree, the path, the mountain, the flower, and just draw a little scene. And this is going to be able to reveal to you what's active. And this is another way that you can take a look at your 5 shapes. Oh, Will, isn't that interesting? Yeah. This whole process will just take a couple of more minutes just to finish your drawing. All right. Now, what I'd like to quickly do is to give you the universal meanings that are attributed to these 8 symbols. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take your drawing and I want you to fold it in half and then fold it again in quarters. So fold it in half and then fold it in quarters. So just take your drawing so that there'll be 4 quadrants. 4 quadrants. But you fold it in half and then fold it in quarters. Fold it in half and fold it in quarters, and then put your drawing open in front of you again. And you'll have 4 quadrants. You'll have 4 quadrants. Fold it in half and then fold it in quarters. And then open it back up again. You're going to have 4 quadrants. 4 quadrants. Okay. Within the Basque culture, the upper quadrant, as you look at it, the upper left-hand quadrant, as you look at it, that quadrant, the upper left-hand quadrant, as you look at it, is known as the Valley of the Birds, and it is the mental quadrant. It is the activity that's currently occurring in your mind. It's the activity that's currently occurring in your mind. It is the Valley of the Birds. It is the home of the blue sky. And it is the quality or the activity that is occurring in your mind. Right below that quadrant, the left-hand quadrant, right underneath it, is called the Valley of the Flowers. The Valley of the Flowers. And it's a picture of the activity that's occurring in your heart or your emotional nature at this point in time. It's the lower left quadrant. As you're looking at it, is the Valley of the Flowers. The Valley of the Flowers. Okay, it's the emotional quadrant or the quadrant of the heart. Okay, the upper right-hand corner or quadrant, the upper right quadrant, as you look at it, is known as the Valley of the Mountains. The Valley of the Mountains. And this is your spiritual quadrant. The activity that's going on spiritually, or other words for spiritual are your intuition, your energy, your life force. And the lower right quadrant underneath it is known as the Valley of the Trees. The Valley of the Trees. And it is the activity that's occurring in your external life with your health, your finances, your work, your creativity. It's the physical reality. The physical reality. Okay, well, lots happening there. Okay, now what I'd like to do is I'm going to quickly go through the meaning of those 8 symbols so that you know what kind of activity is going on in those quadrants. And again, among the Basque belief or the Basque tradition is that there is no right or wrong on this. What this is a portraiture of activity within your nature. It does not, there's no such thing as better, one quadrant being better than the next. There's no comparison here. It's merely a statement of the activity. And the question was asked, well, what if I have all the symbols in one quadrant? Well, that is the area of your nature that is very active and is changing and transforming at this point in time, and you're bringing with you the other gifts from the other quadrants, which are natural, but your focus of change right now is in that particular quadrant. That's where the quadrant that holds the most activity in it is the quadrant where the most change is occurring for you at this point in time. It's where you're like a serpent shedding an old skin. An old skin. Pardon me? Yeah, where the most activity is. Where the most activity is. Now, there will be a symbol that will go through all 4 quadrants. For some people, you might have one of your symbols, you might have a snake moving through all the 4 quadrants. Or you might have your tree moving through all 4 quadrants. Or you might have your butterfly in all 4 quadrants. Or you might have your flower in all 4 quadrants. That symbol, and if you don't worry about it. No, see, this is not a little test on success and failure. So, and if you don't, you may have a symbol that goes in 2 quadrants, connects 2 quadrants. And that's where there's the same activity going on in either the valley of the birds, the mind, or the valley of the flowers, the heart. The symbol that connects all 4 quadrants indicates that that same activity, that kind of change, is occurring mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. It's a multi-level change that's taking place. Okay, now I just quickly want to go through the meaning of these symbols, and you take the meaning of the symbols and you apply it to the meaning of the quadrant. And again, there's no better than, and there's no comparison at all. I would like to say that if you added a symbol that was not asked for, many of you spontaneously said, no water. And children up to the ages of 11, cross-culturally, will want to put in the sun and the moon. They'll add the sun and the moon, and they'll add little rivers, and they'll add little lakes, and so on. Other people will add little stones or little on their pathway, and so on. Anything that you add, anything that you feel compelled to add, indicates from a Basque point of view that you know how to heal yourself, and that what you add is what will heal your nature at this point in time. So if I was compelled to add water, then being near water or in water would be very healing and nurturing to me at this point in time. If I added the sun with rays and so on, etc., then being in the sun would be very nurturing and healing, or using more of my own expressive nature, of my dynamism, would be nurturing and healing. All right, here we go, and then we'll end this so I won't detain you. Yes? Okay, great. Thanks for that reminder. So if I forgot something, one of the 8, I left it out, indicates that is a process that has already been incorporated in my nature to such a point that I am now modeling it and I don't need to look at it. It does not mean it's what I need to look at. It does not mean that if I left it out. It does not mean that from a Basque point of view.
What happens if you added more of what you have?
Well, duplications, like, I may have put in a field of flowers, or I may have put in 5 birds, or I may have put in 2 butterflies, or whatever. Any kind of duplication is a reinforcement of that symbol. It's like a double intensification of that process. So now I'm going to tell you what the universal meanings are associated with these 8 symbols, and then we'll be finished, and I deeply want to extend my gratitude to you for your interest and for your willingness to really stay with this process additionally. The snake, cross-culturally, is associated with regeneration, renewal. It's a strong healing symbol. And if I have a tiny little snake, it does not mean I have tiny little healing that's going on. Or if I have a great big giant mammoth snake, it does not mean that I'm a mammoth healer in any way. It is the quality of healing that I'm bringing. It's the quality of my healing nature. There is no size comparison. The snake... Yes, sure. So, like, if I have the snake in the valley of the birds or in my mind, then what's happening is I'm shedding off old beliefs and attitudes and thoughts, and I'm entertaining new thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs. I'm renewing the mind. I'm regenerating the mind. The same thing with the heart. If I've got the snake in the Valley of the Flowers or the emotional quadrant, is that I'm in a process of regenerating or healing the heart. And if I have the snake in the spiritual quadrant, then I'm in a process of renewing and regenerating my vision, my intuition, my energy, my spirituality. And if I have it in the physical quadrant, I'm regenerating and renewing my relationship with the outer world, including my own body, my health, finances, work, creativity, relationships, so on. So you take the meaning of the symbol and apply it to the meaning of the quadrant, and that's what's going on there. The flower, cross-culturally, is associated with opening, that which I am open to, and that which is unfolding. It's a symbol of opening and unfolding from a cross-cultural point of view. And it's also a symbol of beauty. It's opening, unfolding, and beautifying. So wherever I have the flowers, it's that quadrant that's opening and unfolding and is in a process of beautification. The mountain I discussed a little bit this morning when I went through the 5 shapes, but it is a symbol cross-culturally of spirituality. It's my relationship to my own spirituality, or my relationship to the great mysteries, or my relationship to that which is unknown. It's my relationship to my own searching, seeking, questing nature. And in whatever quadrant I have the mountain, that is where I'm attempting to bring my authenticity. I'm attempting to bring my spirit, my life force into that quadrant. The butterfly, cross-culturally, is a symbol of transformation. But more importantly, it's a change or a process that has been completed. It's a change or a process that has been completed. Because what does the caterpillar know about the butterfly? What does the caterpillar know about the butterfly? If I'm in the butterfly stage, I've totally transformed from the chrysalis, the cocoon, to the caterpillar, and the process has been completed. So whatever quadrant or quadrants I have my butterfly is something is being completed, a process has been completed mentally, or a process has been a transformation process, because a butterfly is a symbol of transformation. So a process has been completed mentally, it's been completed emotionally, or spiritually, or physically. And if that was left out, then I'm currently modeling a sense of feeling that certain processes are definitely completed within my nature. A sense of... Well, it indicates one process has definitely completed and another process is beginning. It's like a death rebirth process taking place in the same quadrant. Okay, let's see. I've done snake. Oh, bird. Oh, the bird is so wonderful. It's cross-culturally, it's seen as this spiritual message that has been cognized. The bird is a messenger symbol, but a message that comes from deep within and has been cognized. It's been brought into my mental awareness. It's not something that's abstract or elusive. It's a message that has been cognized. And so whatever quadrant... Okay, the tree and the shelter I'd like to take together. The shelter, cross-culturally, is associated with identity. And particularly an identity that I've made. Like, let's say I have an identity as a teacher, I have an identity as a woman, or I have an identity as a swimmer. I have whatever I have a strong identity in is the house. And it's from a psychological point of view, it's associated with the strength of my own ego, the strength of my own ego at this point in time. And I may have a tent as a shelter, and that indicates that I have an identity that's movable right now, is changeable right now. Again, take a look at if there's a specific, I might have an oriental structure that I've drawn, which indicates that there's a strong identity that I might have with the Orient, or if it's a tent or a teepee, there's a strong identity that I might have with Native American cultures in some way. But it's my current identity. It's the condition of my current identity, or how I see myself, or it's the condition of my current self-esteem or self-worth. And self-esteem having three components of self-love, self-trust, and self-respect. And that shelter is going to show me the quality of my self-esteem or my self-worth, and those three ingredients of self-esteem, of self-love, self-trust, and self-respect.
Does the presence of windows or doors and a latch are?
Windows are associated with looking in and looking out. Doors or doorways are associated with limits and boundaries, or access in or out, from a cross-cultural point of view. The tree, and again, whatever quadrant I have the house, that's where I have a strong identity. I might have a strong identity with my mind. I might have a strong identity with my heart. I might have a strong spiritual identity. I might have a strong physical identity. But the shelter will indicate to me my identity and the self-esteem I carry around that identity. The tree is a symbol of what naturally is occurring, whether I'm aware of it or not. It's a symbol in the West of the subconscious. In other cultures, a symbol of the unknown. Is a symbol of my basic nature, my raw, instinctual, basic nature. And so often the tree is larger than the current identity, and our own nature is always larger than who we think we are. Our identity is always like who we think we are. And I started earlier this afternoon by saying that, quote, "Who I think I am is a belief to be undone," because identity is constantly changing, but the natural, organic. So it might be interesting to look at my tree, whether it's a summer tree, whether it's a fall tree, whether it's a spring tree, whether it's a winter tree, because, again, the tree is associated with transformation. It indicates the season I'm in. Fall is the season of harvest and letting go. A winter tree is a season of gestation and incubation. A spring tree is that's blooming is a tree of giving birth or experiencing something new. And a summer tree with lots of foliage is associated with fruition, fullness. Or an evergreen tree. All of those indicates that I'm determined to be in touch with my own nature throughout all the seasons, all those processes. Okay, the path, cross-culturally, all cultures have paths, literally, and so there are also internal paths as well. But the path is associated in meaning with discipline or direction known. Discipline or direction known. And so you might see where your path goes. Does it go up a mountain? Does it go to the front door of your shelter? Does it go all over, all the quadrants? Is wanting to make sure you bring discipline and goals into all the quadrants. Now, getting back to the question that you asked that preceded this whole process is that I feel that in taking a look at the old symbols, and particularly transformative symbols, because they unify both science and the mystical and get us in touch with the multi-level being that we are mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And this is an exercise that somewhat addresses that mammoth question.
I want to say something about that question. It's interesting because when I was thinking about it in my mind, I noticed the magnetism of it, the curved line magnetism within myself. And
Yeah.
I expressed it, the magnetism in a straight line. It kind of went out forever, so I'm sorry about that.
And I thank you for staying longer. Oh, would I do the Arinci again? One more time. Well, and this time you can also answer me back if you want to, or try. Okay, but again, what I'd like for you to do with this is I'd like for you to think about where you feel limited, bound, restricted, or restrained at this point in time. Where you might experience some soul loss, and use this sound as a opportunity for empowerment and healing and breaking those crystallized patterns within, and just observe your own responses to it. Yes.
There's something I just want to share. My partner and I are Southerners, and when we heard that sound, it's very close to what was, quote, the old rebel yell.
Uh-huh.
Which there are documented letters from Northern soldiers that said they didn't hear anything, the bullets, but they didn't hear it all.
Yes, and it's interesting. It's equivalent to the American Indian war whoop or the Moorish trilling or whatever. But it's considered a sacred sound among the Basque people and honors the life force. It requires, it's a practice in letting go, and it's a practice simultaneously in coming to one's full nature or sharing one's full nature. So, again, as you hear this, I want you to really practice what it is that you need to let go of right now in your life, and also how you can come into your full power. And it goes like this.